Well, hello, everyone. Welcome into the Striker Texas MLS podcast, reviewing a weekend which saw two victories for Texas teams. And of course, as they were playing each other, that means one loss. It was 2-1, FC Dallas taking the Texas Derby, Austin FC rolling past the Vancouver Whitecaps into first place in the West. Chris Bils. It didn't last, but the vibes are strong in the northern half of the state. We'll get to the southern half in a second. Chris, in Austin, how's it going, man? Exciting times for Austin FC. I don't know if fans in Verde thought they'd be celebrating being atop the table this year, but it's happening, I guess, somewhat often.
Yeah, for sure. And undefeated at home. I think that's becoming a trend and something that Austin fans are really enjoying. These home matches, the players are really enjoying the home matches as well. So we'll get into that. But you guys saw some wild scenes up in Frisco. I think that's where we should probably focus our attention first.
Yeah, it was 2-1. As I mentioned, Victor Araiza is here providing the Houston perspective. We did live streams before and after the game, as we'll do this weekend when we have another Copa Tejas match at the Dynamo welcoming Austin FC. But Victor, you've had a few days to digest. You've had a few days to look at what exactly happened for the Dynamo in a game that I think they played a really strong first half. I think they controlled the midfield. And then it seems like of rookie managers, Nico Estevez 1, Paulo Nakamura 0, because Estevez, once again, smart changes, his substitutes. I thought he waited too long. 84th minute makes a triple sub. Tsiki, the South African rookie, creates a chance nearly instantly, then scores a goal of his own, and FC Dallas is able to get it across the line literally for another one. Facundo Quignon scoring in stoppage time off of an Alan Velasco corner. FC Dallas taking tactical risks. They closed the match in a 3-4-1-2 with Velasco as that playmaker, only three center backs in. So, you just saw Estevez moving the pieces, and I think it worked out, and I'm not sure if the response that the Dynamo had to those changes was strong enough. But how are you feeling?
Yeah.
How are you seeing this one?
Well, by the way, are we just gonna ride over the San Antonio win in the Open Cup? That never happened? Is that what we're doing on this podcast?
Well, we didn't do a midweek show, man. We didn't do a midweek show. We can definitely get into that
Yeah,
as well.
but I think like you said, we did a pre and post game show. One of the questions was how good is this Houston team? Right, we hadn't seen them being tested by a quality MLS team yet, right? Or not many of them at least, right? Portland came into town the prior week. That was a 0-0 draw at home. Now we're going to see how they can do against FC Dallas. They almost had them there till the end, and then they kind of gave it away, which tells you there's still some things to work on. I think ultimately, again, I think I told you this in the pregame show, and then we reiterated it again. Dallas at this point a more complete team, and therefore they get the victory as they should have. And kind of just reiterates again all these data points we already have. Houston at certain positions needs better players, needs better depth, and that's what did them in this time. I'm not going to buy the controversy with the goal, with the free kick. Did it go in? Did it not go in? I think there were enough chances all around, and a great start to Copa Tejas, right?
I do think it was a great start to Copa Tejas. I went down and took some video and chatted with a few fans who were celebrating that win in the Rhine, the supporter section at Toyota Stadium. Listen, last year when the site came into existence, but even before then, I am on the record as sort of being rather critical of FC Dallas fans and the front office for not getting more fans into seats. So far this season, the atmospheres have been great, and Saturday was really no exception. Good group of traveling friends from the Dynamo. Sounds like there were some incident. There was an incident, it sounds like, but I think everyone
Yeah,
returned.
and if anybody should be mad, it's me, right? Because that was my prediction on the line. I would have gotten it right too.
Well, oh yeah. So for the goal, that Memo Rodriguez moment, remember the VAR is looking at every incident, but didn't see enough. And I think, unless there's a replay angle that we didn't see, that wasn't made public, to me, there's not an angle where you can say this was clear and obvious. Victor, you're saying it doesn't matter. The Dynamo had chances, and they did, especially in that first half when I really think that Coco Carrasquilla, Matias Vera really won the midfield battle. Carlos Quintero goes off at halftime of this game with a knock. What do you know about that? And it really did seem to sort of change the complexion, because from there, FC Dallas starts to win the midfield battle, in part because of their halftime adjustments, but I think in part because you lose that veteran experience of Quintero and the threat that he brings.
Yeah, well, it's still hush hush around here. We're gonna try to see what that injury is, but
Busted
obviously, busted open. Obviously, big enough for him to come off at halftime, right? And this is what I'm talking about. I mean, would it have changed the game? I don't know. I don't know if. I mean, I've been the guy who's been saying you need a better piece, right? And Quintero should be the guy coming off the bench. And in this case, I don't know if having him on the field, you would have been able to cap off this game, finish it off. But here's the difference, right? You go to Memo Rodriguez, which, granted, he has that free kick. He was slipping on that play, but and he scored a free kick at Toyota Stadium before, so that's why this was kind of a must-watch play. But other than that, he was essentially non-existent just as he's been the entire season, and that's why, when it comes to depth, when it comes to going to the bench and having options, Houston there is still not a complete team, and it's
I would say it's interesting too, Victor, because you look at what I'm saying. Nico Estevez gets his changes right. He makes a triple sub. He brings in Franco Jara in earlier on in the second half.
That's a nice guy to have off the bench.
A nice guy to have off the bench. You don't want to be paying him as much as you are, but it's not coming out of my wallet or Nico Estevez's wallet.
Y'all can afford it.
Oh, I don't know. Jon Arnold certainly cannot, unless there's news about the striker Texas that I haven't heard yet. But, Franco Jara comes off the bench. He definitely provides a little bit more, he's able to give more verticality. Nico Estevez said he wanted to have Houston center backs be a little bit more occupied. He felt like there wasn't enough pressure there. And he felt like the FC Dallas wasn't getting enough pressure on the fullbacks, who in this attacking
and he went after them. He said they needed to go after them, which again, it's something, I don't know. I look at around the league sometimes and I wonder if teams get to or study other teams enough, right? Because I know specifically with Houston in the past, there's been weak points that I don't think other teams have targeted enough, right?
Yeah, and Estevez says, look, this is a clear pattern of play. We knew exactly that what the Dynamo were going to do here. We weren't really able to shut it down like we wanted to in the first half, but then with this tactical switch, we were. But the point that I was going to make is, you mentioned, hey, Houston needs more depth. Houston needs another piece or two to really be a full, complete team. But listen, I don't disagree with you, but FC Dallas brings Franco Jara off the bench. Okay, we can all agree, you wish he would do more in MLS, but at the same time, it's a designated player, a forward with experience in the UEFA Champions League, but, more recently in Liga MX and Argentine League, that kind of thing. Okay. But then that triple sub is Facundo Quignon, a midfielder also from Argentina, who hasn't necessarily put his stamp on the league, is sort of battling at FC Dallas homegrown for a starting position. It's Josué Quiñones, who they signed from Barcelona and has played in one game for FC Dallas. And it's Ziki, a rookie who's 24, from South Africa, who they drafted from Oregon State because they like him. And he has provided a spark, but he's never played more than 20 minutes in an MLS match. Even when he started, he starts the league game for the Lamar Hunt US Open Cup. And it's like, I don't disagree with you that, look, you probably want more pieces, but it also matters how you move those pieces. It also matters like what you can get out of these players.
Right.
When you look at FC Dallas's impact players, it's Ziki and Quignon, they did spend a little to bring in last year. They had to spend a transfer fee, but it's draft picks. It's guys they're acquiring on loan from South America. And, they're able to get the most out of those players, at least in this game and so far this season, to be totally fair. So I take your point. Hey, maybe the Dynamo needs some more depth, but I also think that FC Dallas deserves a lot of praise for not necessarily, yes, it's important that they went out and got Alan Velasco. He had a really good game. He assists the what turns out to be the winning goal. He certainly kept Steve Clark honest on a number of occasions with shots that I think surprised. We saw him have a bit of a tactical evolution in this game that we haven't yet seen, where we knew he could play on the wing and in the center. In this game, he was playing through the center more than we've seen him play in all of his FC Dallas career, which is brief. But him and Paxton Pomykal start to work out this switch that I think will become a feature of FC Dallas's attack, where the most advanced attacking midfielder ends up on the wing for a while, allowing Velasco to move centrally and almost play as a 10. And then by the end of the game, he's playing as a playmaker. So, I think FC Dallas, yes, the roster probably is better constructed than Houston's, at least until Ache shows up. But Chris, Austin's seeing this too, where you're just like, you're getting the most out of some of your pieces, and some of that is down to coaching, some of that is down to, vibe is a dumb word, but like the mood in the locker room, how players are working together. I think it's too early to say, and look, the Dynamo are still in the playoff places. All three Texas teams are. That's not what we were talking about last year. Everyone's in a better place right now. There's no doubt about that. But Chris, I do think this FC Dallas roster looks like it's complete, not because necessarily of the moves they've made, but because of what they're getting out of these players.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing I think about with FC Dallas when you're talking about a guy, like the kid out of Oregon State, is to get on the field at FC Dallas, you gotta work your way past some people. North Texas SC, academy players coming up. So the competition I think is good. And then also, the other thing that I hear coming out of this one that I know you wrote about, John, was Nico Estevez making those adjustments. The humility, I really like what he's saying coming out of some of these games where he's not setting his team up. But the thing is like also I wonder when FC Dallas might get burned by not being in the right setup to begin a match. But the other thing I really like is from FC Dallas and Austin and even Houston to some extent is the belief that you can get a result even when the chips are down late in matches, and that's been a trend that certainly we didn't see enough of last year from any of these three clubs. And I think wherever that belief's coming from, it's working out. I think in FC Dallas' case, it seems to be Estevez. I love the emotion coming out of him in the second.
I asked him about that celebration where he's kind of going nuts, and Peter Lucine, his assistant, like lifts him up, and Quignon's in the corner with his shirt off. Matt Hedges kind of fell on that play because I think he gets the touch that then sets it up for Quignon. He's just on the ground, and all of a sudden Szabolcs Szun, who hasn't been making the 18, who just got time in the cup, he's a Hungarian international. It doesn't seem like he's frustrated because he tackles Hedges on the ground. So I was like, oh, is Hedges down with injury? And I was like, I hope not, because he just got taken out by Szun. And, at the end, everything's fine. Everyone's loving it. Everyone's happy, at least for FC Dallas. Victor, real quick, the last kind of brushstroke I want to take on the Dynamo before we look at the Austin game and talk a little bit about this weekend's matchups. And we can get to that cup. I know you want to jab Chris Bils with it. I think the other thing that this shows when you talk about the depth is that FC Dallas, as Chris mentions, has established this pipeline. Dynamo 2 getting a result, starting to exist this year. But Memo Rodriguez is like still the best example of like a Dynamo Academy product, right? And I mean, he's not making a jump that Ricardo Pepi did. He's not making a jump that Brian Reynolds did. He's not making.
And I think at this point he's not going.
No one is, right?
I mean,
no. And I'm not saying it's about him. I'm just saying like this is an academy with, as Tab Ramos I think very eloquently put, like Houston is the size of Uruguay. And Uruguay competes for World Cup titles.
Look.
Why are the players not coming? It seems like the things are changing with GA Cup, success that the Dynamo have, with other good youth performances, and with the establishment of this MLS Next Pro League, but also the Dynamo kind of taking part. But I will say, in that respect, they're absolutely still playing catch up with FC Dallas.
Yeah. By the way, Dynamo Academy not producing a lot of players, right, for the past for the first decade of the team, and they made the coach the head coach of the Houston Dash, right? So that kind of tells you what the Houston organization cared about in terms of results during a long tenure. That tells you the entire health of the franchise. But look, the changes have been coming in the offseason, right? I think we mentioned the ownership group, and also in Dallas has been a big part of turning things around, right? Empowering the coach, empowering the general manager, and to go out and build this team. There is a little pressure now on Pat Onstad, on Nagamura, to kind of get this right over the long term. Obviously, playoffs is the bare minimum. I think bigger picture, Houston is a more complete team, or going to be the most complete team over Dallas and Austin because of the Achacha signing. I still think they need a few pieces. I'm not saying they need to break the bank and get another big signing. I just think they need to kind of tighten up some things around the roster, right? And I think the same goes out for Austin and Dallas, because listen, it's a two-team picture in the West for the last couple of years. Honestly, it's Seattle and Portland, and then there's everybody
neither of those
else.
teams are in the playoff spots right now. So I mean, they
It
could
doesn't
make
matter.
a charge.
It doesn't matter. They're going to be at the end of the year.
Right, exactly. I mean, you expect them to be because of that reputation, because the Sounders have been managing two fronts. I'm a little less convinced in the Timbers, but I do think that at least one of them makes a
Yeah,
charge.
but
Let's
you
quickly
probably
turn.
less convinced. Let me just finish real quick. Probably less convinced last year, and then they still made it to the final, right? So I think there is a spot there to be taken, to break through and be that third team in the Western Conference that challenges consistently. One of the three Texas teams can do it if they want to put themselves in that mix, and that's when I say
Mm-hmm.
when I talk about Houston signings, if they want to, just stick around each other and kind of just be where everybody else is at, they can do that too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's turn our attention to a team that is sitting in number 2 in the Western Conference. That is Austin FC. Chris, I do think that midweek cup defeat in San Antonio added a bit of pressure to this game. I was talking with
It
our
did,
buddy David
yeah.
Goss on the MLS official spaces, or whatever it's called, MLS Today, I think it is. And he asked me that question. I said, absolutely. I mean, I really do think it ratchets up the pressure, but Austin FC dealt with that pressure well, delivering their home fans a 3-0 victory. Maxi Arruti, we talked before the season about how this guy was going to bring some intangibles. He's a nice piece that fits in. But, I caution, I think Victor cautioned, hey, we like this player. He works hard. He works well in the system. Good locker room guy. You might not get a lot of goals from him. Maxi Arruti's like, nah, I'll give you some goals. 2 goals in this one in the first half. They go into the half-hour mark with a 2-0 lead. Driussi finishes it off with a goal in the second. It's 3-0, and the good times are back in Austin after that speed bump in the cup.
For sure. And I think that, definitely the mood coming out of San Antonio was they were upset. They were, as Josh Wolf said, they were pissed off that,
Wow.
they wanted to.
He went there.
After the game or before?
He went there.
After.
They're probably more pissed off after. They had a pretty short trip, to be honest. Sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
No, anyway. So he said that they were pissed off that they had a chance to go chase the trophy, and one that the ownership and that the club wants to take seriously. And I think they came away with sort of some egg on their face going up against the San Antonio club that certainly wanted this one. I don't know if you guys saw the revenge video that they put out. Definitely some people in San Antonio enjoying that win, and it was a good atmosphere. But coming back to Q2 Stadium, I think Austin is really playing confident. The first 20 minutes of this one, I thought, was some really good, free-flowing, fun soccer, the kind of soccer that Josh Wolf wants to put on the pitch, and that, at their best, guys like Alex Ring, Diego Fagundes, Sebastian Driussi, they get in this flow state and they look really, really, really dangerous. But it takes a piece like Maxi Arruti to finish those plays off, and that's the piece that they've been missing. Last year when they 2 good instances when they lost 2-1 to Vancouver Whitecaps, and this one Vancouver just never got a foot on the game. It was almost 70% possession. You get the goal 10 minutes in, you get another 26 minutes in, and Austin just kind of shut the door. They only had 10 shots in this game, but it didn't really matter because they were in control the whole way. And
it was comprehensive.
Very comprehensive, very just buttoned up performance from Austin FC. And I think that's the maturity of this group that we're starting to see, is their ability to control matches. And that's how you get top of the Western Conference.
It's amazing.
Top of the Supporters Shield for 12 hours or so.
Oh, yeah. What a 12 hours they are. Obviously, those trophies are still in play. But the fact that this, it's minute 16 in our show, and we're finally getting to this, partly because it's a Texas derby, and we take Copa Tejas very seriously at the Striker Texas. But also it speaks to, I think Austin FC's early success, that this almost seems ho-hum. And that wouldn't have been the case last year, right? Like, in a way, you just say, wow, what a comprehensive performance by Austin. The identity that Wolf wants this team to have is starting to show. And you say, yeah, this is kind of what we expect from Austin FC at home. That has to speak volumes about how they've implemented and put their stamp on the team. I'm talking about Wolf and the coaching staff. I'm talking about Reyna building the team. It really does seem that, to me, what's remarkable is how unremarkable I felt when I saw this result, watched the highlights. I said, yeah, this is normal, but that's a huge step in the right direction.
It is. And the other thing that, I wrote about, and you can go read about on the Striker Texas, is how big of a piece Maxi Arruti has been. And not just for the goal scoring, but for all those things that Jon and Victor, you talked about, that he brought to Houston and to Dallas, but Austin really needed a guy like that, a guy that's going to lighten the mood. I think he was behind some gel guns or something that they had at the training facility that Josh Wolf said that Maxey had like 30 welts on his body because he was running through the locker room shirtless. And it's like those things like that when you've got the head coach who, Josh Wolf can be kind of stoic, be kind of methodical, and he was in on the gel guns and taking shots in the locker room, and it's like that's the stuff that earns the respect of the guys, I think. And Max Cerruti is the one who's been bringing that. So I just wanted to mention that, and just how much more we've said it almost becomes cliche, the things like blue light, the things like the fact that this team's together. But when you look at the way they celebrate when Max Cerruti scores a goal, I think it becomes really clear how big of a piece that he's been to bring this all together.
You call Max Cerruti a glue guy. I think we got to start calling him a gel guy. I mean, clearly that's what's happening there. He's making everyone look better, just like hair gel, and he uses as a bit of product himself. Let's talk a little bit about next weekend or this coming weekend as we look ahead to Bills making the trip. What's the easiest way? Is it Highway 6? How do you get from Austin to Houston? I never do that drive.
Well, it's you either go I-10 or you take 71 down, and I think that's it can be a controversial topic depending on who you talk to. There's strong opinions.
Live chat.
There's strong opinions.
I'm sure our friend Phil West has a take, and I'd love to hear it, to be honest. We'll look in the live blog when that game is rolling. How did our writers choose to get to Houston?
You don't like making all the stops on 290?
I kind of do, actually.
Hitting all the red lights?
I'm a small town guy. I like going through some of those little spots.
Giddings and all.
You don't like it well enough. I think you got to go. I think you got to do. We got to get a Chris Bils travel log because he doesn't know the towns. You got to shout him out next week when we talk on Monday. Let's talk about the game a little bit. It is Austin going on the road, Chris, and we mentioned how good they've looked at home, how they've expressed that identity. It is a quick trip, no matter which way you go, but it is different. It's a different vibe. Houston will have a different setup. How does Austin carry what they showed on the field against Vancouver to the Houston game and not what they showed against San Antonio, where they really did have a lot of I was really surprised how many first team players started, got minutes. Houston and Dallas rotated more. Houston and Dallas got victories. They also didn't have to go on the road. There's a lot of other factors. But how does Austin make sure that this identity that we're talking about, their great home form in MLS, actually gets taken down 290 or whatever road they take?
Yeah, well, they get a little bit of rest. I think Josh Wolf said that the players are going to get a couple of days off after that long week. Diego Fagundes definitely needs it. He played just short of 300 minutes, I think, in those three matches. Played all 90 in DC, all 120 in San Antonio, and got subbed off the 81st minute. And we bumped into him on the elevator on the way out, and he looked spry as ever. So Diego Fagundes, what's
punching the buttons? I believe you. I take your report. I appreciate this detail, but okay, all right.
I mean, we saw him walk off. It's not like I just saw him in the elevator, but yeah.
Okay, I hear you. Did he sprint off the elevator?
Yeah, he did. He just to prove it to me that he could start.
He's like, hey, Bills, come here. I want to tell you something. I'm spry as ever. No, but they do need to have that rest, and they need to take this positive play that they've had on the road. FC Dallas needs to as well. Looking at Sporting Kansas City, FC Dallas hasn't been able to look like the same team on the road as they have at home. It's kind of a big quandary in MLS. And the teams who are going to be in those top 2-3 places in the Western Conference, where Austin sits right now, where FC Dallas and Houston hope to be, will be the teams that are able to get good results on the road. Chris, how do they make it happen this week?
Yeah, and the other thing about this match, I think that what they need to do is really, take this match as a step up in competition, which is something that, that's an interesting part of this, right? Is the Dynamo are probably a better team than what Austin's faced the last few. Of course, Hernan Losada getting the axe in DC. They played San Jose recently. Their coach just got fired. Benny Sartini, watch out after a 3-0. Maybe he might be mad.
Austin FC is like bad luck Chuck. Like good luck Chuck is the guy you date before you get married or whatever. Austin FC is the bad luck McConaughey or something.
It sort of feels like I was thinking about it. It sort of feels like a college football schedule, right? They're getting through. They just played UTEP.
You're saying they ain't played nobody.
A little bit. There's a little.
I mean, look, I've been
There's
saying
a little
that,
bit of a
Beebe's
point.
been saying
Yes,
that.
Andrew
I
Wiebe
do
definitely
think
does say it, but
I do
it's the
think it's time for the
performances.
prove it. It's
Yeah,
time for
it
the
is.
prove it.
It is. I think that the signs are there because of the way that they've comprehensively beaten some of these teams.
Yeah.
But now you've got to go on the road in a place like Houston and take that form there. They certainly did in the preseason. What was it, 4-0, Victor?
Okay, but but all three Texas teams look really good in the preseason
you
last
want
year.
Austin wants a trophy for that or what?
Well, FC Dallas
They
did get
tried
a
to
trophy
create
for it
one
No,
last
look,
season, and
I'm like I said, I'm all for it. Let the good times roll in Austin, but yeah, they've yet to get a real road win away in Texas and any of the Texas
I would
teams.
say I would say this, and maybe this is a super hot take before we move to what Houston looks like. I think this was their best win. I think that bouncing back from the Cup game and smashing Vancouver, to me, is more impressive than beating.
Yeah, but they were always
although
going to beat Vancouver. It's freaking Vancouver, man. They're trash.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
they
can say
did,
it's
and
freaking Vancouver, they're trash, but they didn't do that last year, man. And none of
Here
these
come all
teams
the
in
people that are
Texas
going to
did.
tell me that they were a playoff team last year. Yeah. I get it.
I mean, I think they look bad. I'm actually happy with that. I put them in all of our survey with Phil West. I put Vancouver lowest of any of us. I had them second to last. Right now, they're last in the conference. So I'm not a big Whitecaps believer. I just think it would have been very easy to slip into a hole after the Cup defeat with players somewhat tired. Not Diego Fagundes, but like with these minutes that these guys have been playing, I think it would have been very easy to drop a result, to get only 1 point at home, to kind of crater on the pressure. And then the context around this game in Houston changes completely, because yes, of course,
and this would be a statement win.
It matters. It would be a big statement win because the Dynamo looks so much better, and because it's on the road. Yes, it's a quick trip, but I do think it's a big game. Victor, we talked for Houston about how many home games the Dynamo have, how they need to be good
They're
at
running
PNC
out
Stadium in the first half of this season before Hector Herrera shows up, and we think the team will take that step forward in quality. When you look at the context of a second consecutive Copa Tejas match for the Dynamo, what has to be different this time around, and how do they make sure they protect home turf and deny Austin what would be a really motivating, jubilant victory?
Yeah, look, I think I was going to some of the previews I've written in the past couple of weeks, and the answer is there. I mean, finish these games off early. This isn't a team to be screwing around with tight margins, right?
They can score.
If they can put up a couple goals and put this game a little bit out of reach, or give themselves a cushion for something like Dallas scoring late, they can still walk away with points, right? And that applies even at home. They need to, as was the key with San Jose, they need to put a couple goals to put this game away, make it a statement win. If they leave this up to chance, right? I mean, people can talk about maybe the ref screwing the team in the last two games. That's not the case. The team's leaving this up to chance way too much. They need to take these wins. Put the roster on the field that's gonna take these home points that you got to stack up. Because look, Austin's sitting nice at second. They may finish in fifth, in sixth, or they could finish first. I mean, we don't know, right? But ultimately, what this good start allows you to do is to have that cushion, so that later on in the season you can almost guarantee a playoff spot. And that's what Houston needs to start getting into, because Seattle's not going to be easy when they come here next month. Nashville's not going to be an easy team when they come here next month. And those road trips aren't going to be easy either.
Yeah,
even with Hector Herrera.
As we've said, yes, Hector Herrera, an enormous H factor. I was going to call him an X factor. I guess he's an H factor, right?
Double H.
Like, he is just an absolute game-changing signing. There's no guarantee he shows up and is good.
Right.
There's no guarantee he shows up and is good and can sustain that, because he's just played, he wasn't getting minutes. Now he is. He's essentially played a full European season. He might get tired this summer. Like, you're going to have games where you're going to have to rest him. It's Houston.
And
it's
like
hot.
you said,
there's going to be an adaptation period, right? And so I do think the Dynamo need to avoid mistakes like they made late against FC Dallas. I think they could have protected that lead better. The goals, maybe you can't do anything specifically about them. A couple sort of goal mouth scrambles, to be totally fair, although FC Dallas did kind of.
You can score more. Plays. You can play through the wings, as it has been successful for you. You can get Sebastián Ferreira the ball, and you've seen what happens when you give him the ball.
Yeah, big shout out to him as the new addition. I know you've been, wanting to see more from him. I think he gave it to you in that game. But real quick, Victor, report from Spain and AS, the Spanish newspaper, said that the Dynamo actually beat Atleti to Herrera's signature. it seems like this is a player who Atletico Madrid wanted to re-sign, wanted to have still in their roster, wanted to have as this player who can come in and play UEFA Champions League games. You know, there's not going to be that much of a drop in quality. It speaks well to this signing.
Yeah, and we've heard the comments also, you know, a couple of weeks back from Cholo Simeone, where he talks about maybe a little bit of regret of not going to Acha more, right? Not giving him more playing time. Ultimately, I don't think it's anything new that we didn't already know. I mean, obviously, if the reported number is true, it was going to be hard for Atletico Madrid to give him that kind of money. You know, the logical thing would be to go with somebody younger, right, in Europe, and you know, over a guy who maybe has a couple more years and at that level, but. Yeah, I mean, again, speaks to owner Ted Siegel of the Houston Dynamo that has pushed, you know, signed the check to get Acha here, and that's going to level things up here in Texas.
And Chris, as we look headed to the Texas Derby, or excuse me, the Copa Tejas match, the Copa Tejas match, as we've been talking about this week, Austin FC, one of the big questions about player that they haven't had on their roster, Cecilio Dominguez. We learned a bit more about his situation this week. What's the latest there?
Yeah, we did finally able to get our hands on a police report from the Austin Police Department. A couple of things I wanted to make sure that we get clear here, because I think there's been a lot of talk about this out there. Not all, you know, what was in the report. Basically, it was a member of victim services, not the actual police department, not an actual police officer, responding to the home of Cecilio Dominguez's ex-partner, and who was complaining about some possible mental and emotional abuse, but nothing physical. Of course, Austin FC's Cecilio Dominguez advised not to go to the house while this investigation continues. But there's no ongoing investigation legally, you know, with the police department. It's all an MLS internal investigation. Of course, you know, Austin FC, it seems, getting quickly reacting to this. And getting, you know, the authorities involved to make sure that the ex-partner is safe, because, you know, one of the things in this report was actually that she felt, you know, that, like, possibly the suspension that was going to come from this investigation was going to make for an unsafe situation. And so there's not one incident that this is stemming from. You know, I think that a lot of people have maybe speculated that there was an incident on April 8th. There was not, but it's more of a feeling of, you know, ongoing unease, you know, escalating unease with, you know, the way that relationship has gone over the last few months. They've been separated now for a few months, and of course they've got a son together. And so we'll continue to monitor this, and you know, as more information comes to light, of course you'll be able to find it on the Striker Texas. But I encourage everybody to go read the report that we have up, read it closely, because there's a lot of things in here. There's been a lot of speculation and a lot of different rumors floating around, and I think it's important that everybody, as we discuss this, has the correct information.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a straightforward situation. And so great job, Chris, reporting on the Striker Texas, exactly what has come out, where it has come from. And you can always kind of trust that information. And you know, look, when we don't know, we'll say we don't know, but Chris able to source.
The other thing I wanted to quickly mention is look for a column this week from Jessica Luther.
Great.
Who does a lot of great reporting. Yeah. She's going to be writing something for us. I think she spoke to a domestic violence expert, and you know, just some thoughts on how fans should feel as they think about you know, these topics and when they involve a player on your team. Some good thoughts coming there.
I'll look forward to that, because I do think obviously this comes in the context of the Andy Polo situation, which the Timbers and the league, I don't feel like addressed well. I don't feel like they addressed it in a positive way. And I do think, you know, the victim of that situation, in that case, his partner, and I think the kids as well, you know, the league and the team, for me, didn't do enough there. So I do think it's important for Austin FC to take these measures proactively rather than reactively, and for us to kind of look into that. I want to be covering a league. I want to be living in a soccer ecosystem where these things don't happen, first of all, where everyone feels safe, where players have the support to understand and go through and resolve conflicts with their partners or friends or whoever it might be in a positive way. But when that doesn't necessarily happen, or might not have happened, I'd rather the league take these steps than the opposite. So we'll watch for the situation to evolve. continue reading your coverage, Chris, and look out for that column for Jessica. And we'll see if Cecilio Dominguez ends up back on the field. Of course, we'll have that covered as well, the soccer angle as well as the human angle. We try and give it to you all on the Striker Texas, also up on the site right now. Traditional soccer coverage analysis of FC Dallas's late surge victory over the Houston Dynamo from both perspectives. The Dallas perspective by myself, the Houston perspective by my man Victor Araiza down south. Chris Bils with coverage of Austin FC's 3-0 victory over Vancouver. And this week, all sorts of build up to both FC Dallas's trip to Sporting Kansas City and that Copa Texas game. Week 2, Dynamo hosting Austin FC. We got all the coverage on the Striker Texas. Love for you to subscribe and support the work that we're doing to cover the game we love in the state that we call home. Until next week, hope you're well. Talk to you next week on the Striker Texas MLS